Several people just make some comments today. And today is a happy day, and it's an emotional day. We're dedicating this building to a gentleman that many of us have known for many years. He was somebody that you had to respect him and you had to love him, because he had a personality that would shine. When Junior Godsey worked at EMS, prior to him losing his life in Elizabethton, Junior did several things that I could laugh about, but you just had to know what Junior's intentions were. Somebody, the other day, we was standing in here, Chief Perry and Chief Mahan, a bunch of us old codgers, was sitting in there and said, well, what would Junior say about this building? Junior would have said, why it took you so long to get to this point, Mark. And that's the way he was. But I never will forget one time when I was at EMS and Oklahoma City bombing happened, and Junior come walking into my office and he says, you need to get on the phone right now and you need to get me a C-130 sitting at Tri-City Airport because we're going to Oklahoma. They've had an explosion down there. I said, Junior, I don't think it works that way. Well, now listen, if you don't do what I tell you to, I'm going straight to the mayor's office. I said, okay, and Gil Hodges was the county mayor, so a little bit later, Gil called me about 30, 45 minutes. He says, hey, Junior Godsey come down here, and walked in and said, I need to get on the phone, call the governor, and have a C-130 sitting at the Tri-City Airport because Kingsport Life Saving Crew and EMS, we're going to Oklahoma City. He says, how do we do this? I said, well, I think it's got to go through a process. The governor of Oklahoma has to ask FEMA. FEMA has to ask the state of Tennessee, and the state of Tennessee reaches out to the local emergency management offices. Well, I told him I didn't know how it would. I'd give you a call. Well, Junior called later on. He said, I'm calling the governor. I said, do whatever you need to do. That's the way he was. You got to love him. So, I know a lot of you all know we wear this turnout gear when we're working car wrecks and so forth, and we'd have car wrecks. And we had a policy to make sure the EMS workers had the same fire protective gear on as the fire department did, because the car flashed and they'd get burned up. Well, one day in the Times News, here Junior standing up on a car up in front of Don Hill Pontiac, was standing up on top of a car, cutting a car apart, and had 1 ounce of gear on it. So the phone started ringing, says, did you see that in the paper today? Junior's not wearing his gear. And I said, okay. So I had to call Junior and tell Junior, I said, Junior, you got to wear your gear, man. You're going to get hurt out here. All right, I'll do it. Didn't like it, but you had to love him. Somebody said Mark and Junior had a love-hate relationship. Probably did, but I loved him. Because I always knew that if any time something happened, Junior better been called. And so when Terry Arnold from Carter County that night called and said, Mark, I need your resources from Sullivan County because we've got Rome Mountain flooding, we got a school being flooded and all that. Well, believe me, the first person I called was Junior, because I was not going to listen to it from now on because I didn't call him. So I called him, and he went and got the boats. I said, go down to Kingsport Life Saving Crew and get the boats and so forth to go. Junior told me that night, he said, you take care of me. He said, you take care of me. And something happened over there. We're sitting at 11 in 1980. I said, Junior, I'll take care of it, buddy. That was hard. That was hard. I'm going to go back about this story about this building. Junior loved EMS. He had some things that if you'd done something in training that wasn't really smart, he called you a nannerhead. Well, Okay, Junior. One time he was a preceptor as a paramedic, and he had a student come in, didn't dress real well out on Wilcox Drive station, and so he threw the student out. He said, "Get out of here. Don't even come back. You ain't going to do no better than that. You ain't going to be a paramedic, and I ain't training you." He had the drive to make some of the best paramedics under his training, and there's many of those men sitting right here today that had a part of Junior in them. This building from now on will have a part of Junior in him. And every one of those men and women that come through and go through training, they're going to have a little bit of Junior in them. And that's the type of paramedic that everybody wants to hire. I'll tell you another little story. We started the first responder programs at the volunteer fire departments in the county. And one day I got a call from one of the volunteer fire departments was complaining that Junior pulled up on the scene of a car wreck, and the guys in the volunteer fire department didn't have no gear, no recognition, so he got out of the ambulance. And you know what his stand was? "Step aside, citizens." And I said, "Junior, you got to make sure that those are not first responders. You got to get out of the way." But I'm going to stop right there, and Miss Godsey, or Miss Blakely now,